So Man City lost last weekend against Arsenal, and there's normally two things that get brought up when Man City lose a game, and one is Rodri and how they're incapable of winning a game without him, and two is Erling Haaland. After every loss, Haaland's overall footballing ability is called into question. Despite scoring 82 goals in 90 games for Manchester City, a lot of the media seem to think he can be a hindrance at times to the club. So in this video we're going to look at the Erling Haaland Paradox. When Man City do win a game, why are Haaland's deficiencies not brought up? It's weird because with someone like Liverpool, Trent Alexander-Arnold is still criticised even when Liverpool win. People will say, yeah, he played well going forward, but he got skinned by Jeremy Doku. He got skinned by Gabriel Martinelli. But you'll rarely hear criticism of Erling Haaland when Man City win. And yes, that is also because he will normally score 1 or 2 goals when they do win, but it seems to be a non-issue. But when Man City lose, it's a massive issue of a lot of people. I mean, Roy Keane, who, yes, he might say some things for a bit of attention or a bit of shock value, but he compared his skill set, or his overall skill set, albeit, to a League 2 football player. It just blows my mind how this is still a conversation. I did a video about a year and a half ago. I wouldn't watch it because it's not a great watch. I discussed how Haaland, the narrative just needs to stop around him, because how can you have a generational, once in a lifetime kind of player, but there's articles amongst articles and articles every time Man City don't win a game. Let's bring in 2 players who I think are a great case study to compare Haaland against, and one is a man who's banging form at the moment, Alexander Isak. He's world class, isn't he? Let's just call him what he is. He is a world class player, and he has maybe one of the best overall skill sets in the world at the moment. He's tall, he's quick, he's good on both feet, he can dribble, he's good in the air, he's a great finisher, and he's everything you want in a striker. However, unless you're from the northeast, guarantee if you gave Erling Haaland and Alexander Isak free to a team and they just had to pick one, every team would pick Erling Haaland. I would die on that hill. But that's odd, isn't it? Because Isak has so much more on paper that he offers than Haaland. But a goal scoring record is a goal scoring record at the end of the day. If you are smashing Alan Shearer's season goal record out in your first year at the club, it's nothing to turn your nose up against. Alexander Isak is a brilliant, wonderful football player, and he is top 5 striker in the world at the moment. But it's just the way it is. A striker needs to score goals, and they are based mainly on the numbers. This guy isn't a player that I'm looking at another case study with Haaland. Darwin Nunez does so many things for Liverpool. He tracks back, he puts so much pressure on players. Liverpool just beaten Spurs as I'm recording this now, and he won the penalty just out of pure passion, but he can't finish the ball. And at a certain point this season, all Liverpool fans wanted rid of him, but he's an all-around player, so naturally strikers are based on the performance. But the other player is Harry Kane, and I think this is the most ironic bit maybe in English football for Harry Kane, because Harry Kane again is one of the best strikers we're ever going to see, but especially under Jose Mourinho, he dropped into a bit of a deeper role, and it's when he had loads of assists playing up front with Heung-min Son, but he also had loads of goals. And then he played for England, and including myself, we were all saying, Harry, we don't want you in the number 10 role spraying the passes about. You're brilliant at that, we all know it, but get into the box because you need to score a goal. So like I say, on one hand you have Harry Kane, who is an all-around player. He's a much better passer of the ball than Erling Haaland. He's probably a much more intelligent football player than Erling Haaland. I mean, he's a lot older than him, but there was a reason why Manchester City were trying to pay 100+ million for Harry Kane, because he is one of the best strikers in the world, but at everything he does. But again, when Haaland joined Manchester City for that first season and he smashed the individual season record, no one was talking about, I wish Man City would have got Harry Kane over Haaland, because he was scoring all the goals. So that's a long way of saying strikers are based on scoring goals, because especially a team with Manchester City, you don't need a striker to do everything. Luis Suarez for Liverpool under Brendan Rodgers needed to do everything, because he had players like a young Jordan Henderson, Joe Allen behind him, who were all solid players, but they were nowhere near the level that they needed to win the title. So when Luis Suarez is getting 20+ assists, 20+ goals in a season, it was really needed. However, when you're a Manchester City and you do have a Phil Foden, who's one of the best players in the world, you do have a Kevin De Bruyne, who's one of the best players in the world, you just need someone to put the ball in the back of the net. But it's just odd, this constant obsession with player, that they need to do everything. It's this constant comparison through Reece James and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Trent Alexander-Arnold's probably a lot more efficient going forward, but Reece James could do more than him overall. So then people diminish Trent so much. I don't want to do these comparisons, but it's just a great example of how a player can have loads of deficiencies, but they can be brilliant in another way which completely outweighs everything. Are you going to judge Lionel Messi on his tracking back? because in this modern era, if you did, you'd be wildly disappointed. Cristiano Ronaldo, when he went back to Manchester United, is a great example. I think he did change the way they played under Ole, because they were having quite an intense attack at the time. However, Ronaldo came in and I believe scored 18 Premier League goals in his first season back, which is funny because at the time it was seen like, yeah, he scored that, but he's taken away from the team. Guarantee if you offered Man United a striker who could score 10 goals in a season, they'd snatch your hand off for it. And I don't think teams really appreciate strikers until they're gone. Prior to Haaland coming to Manchester City, because they were after Kane as well, if everyone remembers, they had a false nine and everyone said Man City won these multiple league titles without a recognised striker. In my opinion, they won it despite not having a recognised striker, instead of because they didn't have a recognised striker. Ilkay Gundogan, one of my favourite players of the Premier League era, he just had an insane year. Ferran Torres filled a hole quite well during his time there. But if we all just want to turn our short memory switches off and think back to Man City at that time, we all said Raheem Sterling's brilliant, Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva's brilliant, but they need someone who can put the ball in the net. And now it's been given to them, and I'm not saying Man City fans are saying this because I'm sure they die by Erling Haaland, but the media itself, who claim to be football experts, are saying that he's a bit negative towards the team. This whole argument obviously has the other side, where Haaland has to improve on certain things in his game. It was the whole thing with Ronaldo in his prime, it's the current thing recently with Mo Salah until this season. Mohamed Salah just scored 20 plus goals a season like clockwork, and I think he's really improved, especially in the last 2 years. But there's a certain period of time, if Mohamed Salah didn't score, he didn't play. And yes, he was there in presence, but he just did not make an impact at all. And any debate you'd have at the pub or with your mates or whatever, the whole constant argument would be, well, he scores 20 goals a season, so what are you moaning about? But again, like I say, if you watch these players, you kind of go, no, he does need to improve. And I do believe that with Haaland. I've seen him against Arsenal quite a few times, and despite he scored a brilliant header, very old school kind of header, Gabriel and Saliba, I personally think, have his number. I think Van Dijk has his number. I think they know how to defend him because they cut off the supply to him. They're physical enough, they're big enough to get in his way. And especially Gabriel and Saliba, I think they do a great job on him. So if he is able to drop back and get into the build-up play a bit more, which might allow Jeremy Doku, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden to get in behind, I think there's so much work that he could do because he's so young. What is he, like 24? But to me, I don't want to get deep about it, but I think it is just an indication of the UK sports media. Everyone just focuses on the negatives of a player if they're losing at the moment. Saliba and Gabriel had an awful time against Gordon and Alexander Isak against Newcastle, and now despite them being probably the best centre-back partnership the last 3 or 4 years, it's completely getting thrown out the window because they got caught on the ball against Newcastle. So now playing out from the back, just it can't work. Even look at Pep Guardiola, who has dominated football, you could argue, since 2009, and only took a bit of time off when he was at Bayern Munich. I mean, he still won domestically everything, but now all of his tactics are obsolete because he's having an off-season this year. I just personally will never understand it, how you can have a player of Haaland's ability, and we can all say as much as we want, I'd score 10 goals a season, getting past the ball from De Bruyne and Foden, but they're not creating as many chances as they used to be, and Haaland has still scored 19 goals this year. That's with basically an absent midfield. He doesn't have De Bruyne every single week feeding balls like a couple of years ago. I think historically this has been a thing with target men, because when target men don't get the ball, they don't get the ball, do they? They can't do what a Sergio Aguero did, or they can't do what a Luis Suarez did, because they don't have the ability, in relative terms, to drop back into the midfield, take on a man or so, pass the ball about, spray the ball 40 yards. So they're just completely cut off. Robert Lewandowski, for example, I remember especially during the mid-2010s, he would score so many goals, especially domestically, and you'd watch him in the Champions League when Bayern were playing a defensive team, maybe Atletico Madrid. He would never get the ball, and realistically people would argue, is he worth having on the pitch? If you can't get the ball to him, he's doing nothing. Whereas you could have someone like a Thomas Muller who would run about, who would do everything else, but they would stick with Lewandowski because if you do give him the chance, 99% of the time he is probably going to score it. I mean, you let me know what you think about Erling Haaland. I think fans as a whole, we appreciate him, we think he's brilliant, but the media, maybe it's just to gain clicks, maybe it's just to annoy idiots like me into making these videos, but it feels like they just always got the articles ready to dissect Haaland's game when they lose. Dissect it when they win, and I will completely shut up. But they don't, because when they win, all the plaudits go to him, but when they lose, all the criticism goes to him. But like I say, let me know what you think, leave a comment, leave a like, and if you subscribe to the channel, that'll be brilliant. But thanks for watching.